So let's just get started and talk about what exactly a sales message is. When I say sales message, some people may think that I'm referring to creating a sales script. And in fact, a lot of customers and clients hire us to help them. They come to us asking for our help in creating their sales scripts or their cold call scripts, more specifically, or telemarketing scripts. We also have companies that come to us and want our help in creating their email messages and cold email messages. And whenever that is the case, before we create those documents for our clients, I prefer to take a step back and create their sales message. And the sales message is basically the foundation that you can create those other documents on top of, because the sales message is basically everything that you say when you're communicating with a prospect. That could be what you say when you talk with prospects, but it could also be what you communicate in written verbiage, or what you communicate in videos, or really anytime you're communicating. So in other words, your sales message at the most basic level, it's your talk tracks. It's the key points that you want to get across. And if you create an organized sales message, not only can you use that for your sales scripts and your emails, you can also use that sales message for your voicemail messages, for your objection responses, for your what you say when you're at appointments, your appointment script. It's what you can use your sales message for when you're delivering presentations and demos. And even you could use your sales message for your marketing content, like what you need to put on your website. So one thing that creating your sales message does is, if you're a business owner or a salesperson and you could benefit from all these different deliverables, it's a lot easier to create all of this different stuff if you first create your sales message, because then you can use the same talking points for all these different documents, as opposed to creating, okay, let me create my sales script. Okay, now I need to create email messages. The process we go through will make creating all those documents really easy, and I'm going to show you that. Before we get into that, I want to share some key do's and don'ts. The first step in doing anything regarding communications, whether it's talking to your girlfriend or negotiating a contract with someone, first start by trying to understand the other person. So if we try to understand the prospect, there are three things that I want you to keep in mind when creating your sales message. The first thing is that the prospects that you're communicating with, they are getting sold to a lot. Especially if you're prospecting at a decision maker level, they are getting bombarded by salespeople every single day, through the phone, through email, in the physical mailbox. This is important to be aware of, because if you are aware of this, then you can modify how you communicate to compensate for them also being contacted by other salespeople. The other thing that I think is important to be aware of is that humans care about their own stuff most. Sure, we care about other people, we care about other people's stuff, but the thing that we care about the most is our own stuff. You care about your friends' kids, but you care about your kids more than anything. You care about your hobbies more than your friends' hobbies. Even knowing you can sit there and talk to them at lunch, if they play tennis and you play golf, you'd much rather go play golf, watch golf, talk about golf, than to watch tennis if your friend's hobby is tennis. So this is important with your sales message, because if your friend cares more about tennis and you care more about golf, if you're wanting to communicate with them in an engaging way, remember the goal today is to create an attention-grabbing message. Not just any message, but an attention-grabbing message. If you want to grab your friend's attention at lunch, you would want to talk to them about tennis. You'd want to talk to them about their hobby, their kids, their vacation, to really get them engaged. And that's what we're going to try to do with prospects. The last thing on understanding the prospect is that most likely when you are communicating with them in a cold manner, you are likely reaching out to them when they are not in buying mode for what you sell. Does not mean that they don't need what you sell, does not mean that you cannot sell to them. It does not mean that you cannot make them interested and want in what you sell. But when your message is getting initially communicated to them, they're not sitting doing a Google search on what you sell. If they were, then you could communicate in a more direct way. But and so I'm going to provide the next 3 tips I give you will apply to each of these. The first one being, if your prospects are getting sold to a lot, the first thing you want to do is not sound like a salesperson that's trying to sell something. Because they get sold to a lot, they will be guarded. And if you sound like a salesperson, you're going to trigger more guardedness. So the first thing we want to do is create a sales message that does not sound like a salesperson trying to sell something. The next thing is, because we know that they care more about their stuff than our stuff, and if you're selling B2B, your stuff is you care about selling your service or product. Their stuff is their job, the company they work for. Maybe they care about selling the services of their company and making revenue for their company. So that's what they care about. So we want to make our sales message more about them than about us. And that's one way to grab their attention. The last thing on understanding the prospect is that they are likely not in buying mode at the time that we reach out to them. And because of that, and for other reasons, one of the most important tips in your sales message and in your strategy and approach is to not sell the product, but sell the meeting. I often talk about a 3-step sales process, which is you're initially reaching out, and then you should be driving towards a meeting. And a meeting could be simply a conversation. And then the third step would be some sort of presentation. This may sound like a no-brainer. Sure, don't sell the product, sell the meeting. But most salespeople, every time they speak with a prospect, when they are in product selling mode, even if they have to talk to the prospect many times over many months before the deal is actually closed, typically every conversation is centered around, this is what I sell, do you need what I sell, are you interested in what I sell? That type of message is selling the product. Even if you're not selling the product at that particular time, when the conversation and message is all around that, that's selling the product. Sell the meeting and just try to establish the conversation, and we will talk to you about how to do that. The other thing is, if you notice the first slide that I showed, I said the sales message is talk tracks and key points. Typically, when a salesperson is thinking about, okay, I need a good sales message, or what should I say, the instinct is to focus on what are the key talk tracks about what I sell, how can I describe what I sell to generate interest, what are the key points about what I sell that I can make to make someone want to buy from me. I believe the most important thing is not how you describe what you sell, but the questions you ask. The best salesperson is the one that asks the best questions. Our sales message that we help you to create will have questions. Every salesperson has a sales message, even if they haven't done what you're doing right here, which is trying to learn about how to create a good sales message. And most salespeople, I believe over 90% of salespeople, and this is from my own experience of working as a salesperson and also being a prospect with salespeople selling to me, I believe that over 90% of salespeople do what I call product selling, and they use a product selling sales message, and that looks something like this. This is the company I work for, this is what we sell, this is what it includes. Maybe at some point they may talk about how it's purchased or how much it costs, and the goal is to get a new customer. So I receive emails every day that use that same structure. It's, hey, how are you doing? This is who I'm with. We provide this. Do you need what I sell? So again, are you needing today what I sell? Can I schedule a meeting with you to talk about your needs and see if you need what I sell? That goal is to get me as a new customer. Again, even if I can't just purchase over email, the goal of the message is to get a new customer. Now, if I go back to this picture of what that looks like, basically that sales message is, it looks like this: company, product, features, pricing. And what they basically have done is think of those 4 pillars there as buckets. And what they're doing is they fill up those buckets with their knowledge of, okay, it's easy to know, you think and breathe your company and product info almost every day of the week, sometimes even on the weekends. And so it's easy for those buckets to fill up with talk tracks and key points. And what basically happens is that becomes their knowledge and the foundation for their sales message. And with this type of product selling sales message, those buckets of key points that is what's used for call scripts, emails, and whatnot. And that's where you get a product selling, product pushing salesperson. And when someone uses that type of sales message, they sound like a salesperson that's trying to sell something. And when your prospect gets emails and calls every day from product pushing salespeople, if you sound like this, you're going to trigger more guardedness. And really, our goal, remember, today is to create an attention grabbing message. So we're going to talk about how to get someone's interest and create and grab their attention. But one thing you should also do is not push them away. So the opposite of grabbing their attention is making them, walk away and shut you down and put up their guard. And so when you sound like a salesperson, you are accomplishing that more than you're not. So if we can at least get you to not use a product selling sales message and not sound like a salesperson, you're going to be one step closer to grabbing attention. So the way that the sales message that I'm going to help you to create today is more of a consultative selling message. So instead of really talking with primarily about your company and product, we focus more on how your product helps the buyer. Because remember, how you help them makes it more about them. They don't care that your product looks like this or it has this name or has this feature. They care about what's in it for me, and what's in it for them is the improvement that you can make for them. Another way to look at it is, instead of an improvement that you can make for them, is maybe a problem that you could make go away. So our message centers around pain points. I talked about the best salesperson is the one that asks the best questions or the most questions. And you may say that's great, but I don't know what questions to ask. Good questions to ask are questions to see if your prospect has the pain points or problems that you can help make go away. Communicate, sharing customer examples is not only a great way to build interest and create curiosity, it's also a great way to establish credibility. And at some point, you do need to talk about your company and your product, but I think there's an optimum way to do that. And I also think to do that as a secondary thing to talk about with the prospect, not lead with, this is who I'm with and this is what I sell. But when you do talk about your company and product, focus on your differentiation, focus on ROI that you can deliver, focus on bragging points and whatnot. And the goal is not, this is what I sell, do you need what I sell? The goal is, let's have a conversation. Maybe you don't need what I sell today, but let's just start the dialogue. And so we'll talk to you about how to do that. So if I go back to this, with our approach, instead of all the company and product stuff as the foundation, it becomes those other items. So value, pain points, qualifying questions, name drop. And so the process that I'm going to take you through next goes through a process of how to create that message. It might seem complicated because we're going through these different steps that I'm going to show you, but it's real simple in that, again, think of each of these as buckets, and all you really need is a handful of bullet points or key points, talk tracks to put in each of these buckets, and then we can use all of those bullet points to create all of those documents across the top, and that's what we'll do at the end of today. So now let's go through a step-by-step process for how you can create your sales message. I'm going to go through this really linear kind of step-by-step process, and it starts with, we're going to identify the product or service that you sell. And by the way, these steps all build one on top of another. So each next step uses information that we gathered in the first step. So when you sell your service, who are you targeting with this particular sales message? And ideally, you should actually end up with more than one sales message, especially if you sell to different types of buyers. But we could just kind of start with crawl, walk, run. Crawl would be, let's just create one sales message that you can kind of use for everybody. And then when your product is provided to that type of buyer, what are the improvements that you can make? And then when you make those improvements, what pain points can go away? And then if you make those pain points go away, what questions could you ask to see if the prospect has the pain that you can fix? And then we end with just coming up with a customer example. That's the process. And again, all we're trying to do is think of a handful of bullet points in each of those steps. And again, one important thing is, since these steps build one on top of another, when you change the target, all the steps after it usually could change. And that's where you really end up with buyer persona focused sales messages. I'll talk about that more in a minute when we get to the target step. So let's just start with the product. I'm actually going to use an example here to demonstrate this process, and I often try to think of an example that everybody can relate to. So today I'm going to use an example of web design services. So everybody kind of knows what a website is. If you're a business owner, you have a website for your business most likely. If not, you know what your company has a website if you're a salesperson. So I'm going to pretend for this demonstration that I'm creating a sales message for a salesperson that sells website design services. And so just to kind of brainstorm, what would that include? Because at some point in our sales message, we need to explain, this is what I sell and this is what it includes. Website design services includes design and building websites, updating, redesign, graphic design, wireframe design, content development, updates, copywriting. So that's the product. Moving on to the next step here. If that's what we sell, who are we targeting for for this sales message that we're creating? And if you look at it, you could often target different types of buyers, different size of prospect organizations, maybe different geographies, different industries. Maybe if you're selling B2B inside of a company, you could sell to different functional departments, and you could often maybe sell to different levels of an organization. When you change one of these buyer types, most likely, because if you see after this step, once we select the buyer type, we're going to talk about benefits and pain points and questions. Those could all change. If you go from selling to a manufacturing industry into healthcare, which in a past life I sold software and I could sell to both manufacturing and into hospitals, the software was exactly the same. But when I changed those buyer types, the message could be different because it's different hot buttons. And again, our goal here for this training is to create an attention-grabbing message. Now, sure, you could create one sales message that you use for both manufacturing and hospitals, and that would be a good first step for crawl. But when you're ready to walk or run and get advanced, creating a different sales message with different pain points that really connect with that buyer type is where you really begin to grab someone's attention. Just one last example on that. If you're selling to functional areas, when you go from talking to finance, maybe you could sell, let's go back to software. If I could sell software to finance and also sell that software to IT, those different organizations will have different interests and different hot buttons. So creating those different sales messages is how we get the buyers, how we improve our ability to get their attention. And this step-by-step process that I will take you through will help you to create those buyer persona type sales messages. For this demo purposes, I'm just going to use the buyer type of small businesses. But you could see here that targeting small businesses is a different sales message than maybe large corporate organizations. But now we'll move on to the next step, which is brainstorming the value that you offer. Value is basically the improvements that you can make for your buyer, the improvements that your service, if they use your service or product, that they will likely see. You could just brainstorm, maybe 3 to 5 improvements that your product or service can make. You could get more thorough with it. I'm going to give you 3 different levels of value. And again, you don't need to worry about this. But if we're talking about how to grab the prospect's attention, these 3 levels can help you to think of stuff that you might not have thought of without thinking about these 3 levels. So level 1 would be technical value, and this is how you might help your customer to improve processes, make something technically work better, more reliable. But once you deliver technical improvements, those usually work their way up to create business improvements like decreasing costs, improving operations, improving revenue. And then a lot of times you could go one step further, that when you help a business or your buyer to realize business value and technical value, that could actually help that buyer at a personal value in terms of helping them to make more money, hit bigger bonuses at the end of the year, get more time with their family because they're not having to work as much because you're automating some of their work. You don't need to worry about that, but if you want to create an attention-grabbing message, these different levels can help you to think of new stuff. I think what happens a lot of times is people get stuck in a particular area. They only think of technical improvements, or maybe they only think of business and they skip the technical. So that's just to give you some ideas. For this demo, we increase revenue that's going to be generated through their website. That's a business improvement. Make their website easier to use and navigate for their visitors. That's a technical improvement. Improve website conversions, business. Improve website traffic, might be technical. Improve how they're able to tell their story through their website. Create more leads through their website. So you don't need to remember all those. I'm just demonstrating what value looks like. And if you think about just if we stop right here, we've already created a more attention-grabbing message, because the product selling salesperson is only going to be talking about the left column. And I get these emails every day. I sell web design. Do you need web design? Can I talk to you about redoing your website? They don't even talk about the right column. So if you just stop there, you've already created an attention-grabbing message. I'm going to just throw 3 slides with questions that you can ask yourself to help you to think of, because it can be hard to think of, well, what value do I offer? It's kind of more, I sell a commodity. Web design is a commodity. So, these are questions that help you with brainstorming. I'm not going to read these slides. You can download these slides. Here are technical value brainstorming questions. Do you improve processes, help them to save time, improve visibility? Here are business value brainstorming questions. Decrease costs, increase revenue. How do you do it? Here are personal value brainstorming questions. Okay, I'm moving on. Pain. Going back to, again, trying to get attention grabbing, we can go one step further. Instead of just thinking about a few pain points, you can think of the 3 levels of pain, just like 3 levels of value. There's technical pain, business pain, personal pain. Here's a trick. If you are really successful at creating a good list of benefits and value points, you can use that list to help you to build your list of pain points, because for every benefit, there is an opposite, inversely correlated pain point that you help make go away. Here's an example. For each of these I'm just going to read the pain points, but each of these are matching up as the opposite of what's on the left. Need to generate more revenue through their website. The layout and design is confusing. Website visitors aren't converting. Need to increase website traffic. Website does not clearly tell a company's story. Difficult to generate leads. 1 for 1. So it gets easier as you start going through these steps. It's easier because you can use the previous step to help you to figure out what to do next. And that's one way how, and by the way, you could start to see if we change the target, each of these steps are going to start looking different. And that's, again, how you create buyer persona focused sales messages. And creating buyer persona focused sales messages is how you create more of an attention grabbing message. Moving on to the next step, I said the best salesperson is the one that asks the best questions. So again, we can use the previous step, because what we first should come up with are pain questions. If you solve these pain points, if these are good pain points that your service makes go away, or your product makes go away, you should find out, is the prospect I'm talking to, do they have these pain points? And the best way to do that is to ask them questions. So 1 for 1 for each, actually it's usually for each pain point, you could think of 1 or 2 questions, and I'm just going to do 1 for 1. It's just look at that pain point and think of a way to ask to find out if someone has that. How important is it to get more revenue out of your website? How easy is it to find more information and navigate the website, improve your website, and whatnot? So now we have pain questions. There's actually one more category of questions, because these questions are very directed at, do you have these problems? But there's other questions that we could ask to find out if something's not working well, or if there's an opportunity to start the conversation and sell the meeting, not necessarily sell the product. And that second category of questions are questions that I call current environment questions. These are basically questions that figure out what's going on with the prospect today. What are they using today? And so what these, if you sell cars, these would be the questions of, what are you driving today? What year is it? How often, how is it running? At what interval do you usually buy cars? How often do you buy cars? So those are current environment questions. For every product that's sold, there could be a unique set of current environment questions. Here are some for this demo. Do you currently have someone that makes changes to your website? Are you working with a web design agency? How happy are you with the person that does your website? When was the last time you refreshed your website? How much traffic are you currently getting through your website? And so on. So these are current environment questions. I'm going to move on to the next step, which is thinking of a name drop. So a name drop is a current or past client example. And so one thing that we could use from that we've created here so far is we brainstormed improvements when we talked about value. Well, one thing that we could look back at that and say, okay, who is a good customer where did we make some of these improvements? These could help give you some ideas of a customer to reference, or a good name drop example to think of would be someone that matches up with your target industry. So if you're creating a message for manufacturing, thinking of a manufacturing example. But anyways, here's a template that you could follow, but it's just 3 points. Basically, we worked with an accounting firm and we provided this service or product. This helped them to improve how they told the story of what they do and the services they provide through their website. So that's a technical improvement. And then the third point is a business improvement. So after only 6 months, they increased the number of leads that they were generating through their website by over 500% and increased their overall revenue by 20%. Real quick, that's just a name drop example. You can insert that in a lot of different places, and I'm going to show you where to do that next, because now we're going to talk about actually that process that we just finished was a step-by-step process to create your sales message. Now notice that all we did was organize bullet points, and those bullet points can go in each of those buckets to create, and those individual bullet points are our sales message. And if we just leave it with the sales message, it's not really in a digestible, usable format that we can use when we're selling. Now what we'll do is we'll take that sales message and plug it in to templates and create sales scripts, emails, and more. Now, one way to kind of use all of that stuff is to get your hands around a concept called building blocks. And if you'll notice on the left side, basically, all of those steps that we went through created a different category of bullet points, and I basically put those bullet points together into what I call building blocks. So there's a value points block, a pain points block, a pain questions block, current environment, name drop, product, and whatnot. So these are all building blocks. And now that we have these building blocks, we can use them to build a bunch of different documents. By the way, as you may or may not know, my company that I founded is called Sales Scripter. And the day that I had the idea for Sales Scripter is when I started to think about these building blocks. And where all this comes from is that the first company, before I had Sales Scripter, I had a telemarketing appointment setting business service that we made cold calls for other small businesses. And each time a client hired us, I had the job of interviewing my clients to create their script. And basically what I would do is when I would interview them, I would take them through a process similar to what we just finished, which was going through all those steps. I would, what is it we're selling? Who are we targeting? What are the benefits, pain points? What are some questions we could ask? What is a customer example and whatnot? I would use those individual points to initially create a cold call script. But after I started going through that process again and again, I realized I could use those same points to create cold emails. I could use those same points for voicemail messages and objection responses. And it was that realization that I realized I have something here. This is a valuable process that that could be repeatable. And what I ended up doing is start giving these playbooks to my cold callers, and then I thought of a way to turn that repeatable process into a software application, and that's when I created Sales Scripter. Basically, Sales Scripter has a sales message builder which takes you through that process that we just went through, and then there's a second area called a playbook which has a bunch of templates, which is what I'm going to show you next. And the software basically just allows you to build these building blocks, and then the software puts all the building blocks together into all these different combinations to create all these different documents. That's what Sales Scripter does. I'm going to show you how to some different combinations that you can use these building blocks. So first of all, one of the most important things that salespeople want or need is a cold call script or a warm call script or whatever. I refer to this as a call script, and you could modify it to use it more for cold calling or warm calling or whatever. But notice that if I organize those building blocks over here on the left in this order, this is basically a call script. All I have to do is really stick an intro at the beginning, maybe a close at the end, and here I have a call script. And so let me show you what that looks like. So the introduction, here's an introduction. How are you? Hello, prospect. This is me, and I'm with Website Global. Have I caught you in the middle of anything? So there's the opening. I think using value points or pain points, or you could use a name drop as really the way to establish the call. But in this example, I'll just use the value points. So great. The reason for my call is we help small businesses. And then, by the way, there's like 6 bullet points here. You by no means should read all 6 bullet points. This is just a menu of things you could say. These are your talk tracks. So say 1 point. If your points are all short, you could say 2 or 3. But the reason for my call is we help businesses to increase the revenue generated through their website. I'm not sure if we're a good fit with you. That's why I'm reaching out with a question or two. If I could ask you real quick, how important is it for you to get more revenue out of your website? Some little conversation there. Okay. How important is it for you to improve your website conversion rates? So again, which questions you ask or how many you ask can vary. By the way, also, the left side here is your call script. By no means should you go through one section after another and go all the way from top to bottom. This script is designed to bounce around. If we ask 1 or 2 questions and get great answers, we may skip ahead to the bottom of the script and then close for the meeting. But if we don't get what we need to close for the meeting, we keep moving down the script. By the way, there's a whole training module on how to use this process, this script, and how to bounce around, and I'm not going to do that here today. But as you can see, each building block gives us stuff to talk about in an organized way to our prospect and then a close at the end. So that's an example of how to use your building blocks. And as you can see, when you have your building blocks, it's real easy to do something, to mash it together into different combinations to create different stuff. We can also use your building blocks to create cold emails. So here's a value points cold email using a value point as a subject line. The reason for the emails we help small businesses to, and here's how I help. I don't know if you want to improve any of those areas. That's why I'm reaching out. Are you available for a meeting? So again, there's a whole training module. Check out our YouTube channel on cold email prospecting that explains the structure of this email and how to design these emails. But the point here today is, here's an email you create with your value points. Here's an email that you can create with your pain points. Here's an email that you can create with your name drop. Pain questions. And here's a product email. By the way, the last email is a product email. Again, getting back to our goal here today, our goal here is to help you to create more of an attention-grabbing sales message. What we've already done is we've given you, the last email that we're giving you is what the first email that the product selling, pushing salespeople send. This is the product email, which we recommend you send at the end of your series. This is email number 1 that 90% or more salespeople send is, this is who I'm with, and this is what I sell. Do you need what I sell? And even this email template is a little bit better than that because we remind you to focus more on differentiation, and we're still selling the meeting and not saying, do you need what I sell? Voicemail scripts, we can also use your building blocks to create voicemail scripts. Here's a voicemail message with your value points. Again, there's a whole training module on voicemail strategy, and that explains the logic behind these voicemail messages. Here's one with pain points, name drop, product. Using the building blocks in your head is also an easier way for you to bounce from one topic to another when you're talking to a prospect, and actually to organize this information in your head. And the objection responses is actually a good example of that, because what the product selling salespeople do is whenever they get an objection like, I'm not interested, they try to overcome that objection by talking about their product in more detail. If someone's not interested, they try to make the person interested. So what we do is we redirect back to some of the building blocks. Like for example, when a prospect says, like, and this is a common cold call objection by either a prospect or a gatekeeper, a common question is, well, what is this in regards to? Instead of saying what the call is in regards to, which what it's in regards to is, I'm calling to see if you need my product and I want to schedule an appointment with you to talk about my product, and you would love my product and whatnot. That's really the honest, direct answer for a salesperson. What you can do is you can just go back to your value points. Well, the reason for my call is we help small businesses to increase revenue through their website. So that you're bouncing back to your value. And again, if you keep your building blocks organized in your head, you can get better at responding to objections. Can get easier for you. Meaning, this is an objection response that I'm showing you right here. But if you learn not this response to this objection, but if you learn, because you already know your value points, because your value points are in your email, they're in your voicemail, they're in your call script. So if you already know your value points, what you need to remember here is the mapping. And the mapping is when they say, what's this in regards to, I don't need to remember this response. I need to remember, I respond with my value points. Other objections that are extremely common are, I'm not interested, we can't make any changes right now, we don't have any budget. So a good thing to keep the call going. By the way, there's a whole module on our YouTube channel on dealing with objection handling that goes into the logic and whole number of objections and objection responses. But here's an example of responding to I'm not interested with your pain points. Oh, I understand. But if I could ask you real quick, how well does your website currently tell the story of your services and your company? Can you send me your information? I can certainly do that. So I know what to send you. Could I ask you real quick? And notice, this is a totally different objection, but the response is exactly the same. So if you are not memorizing objection responses, but you're memorizing the mapping, the pain questions are two different objection responses. We already used someone today. We've already purchased something for that. Those are good. You could use your current environment building blocks questions for that. Oh, I understand. What I like to say when they say we already used someone for that. Oh, great. If I could ask you real quick, who are you guys using? How long have you been with them? How's everything going? So that's pretty much it. I know I kind of went through that really quickly because each of those topics is a whole hour conversation, right? So I'll provide links to each of those individual training webinars, but there's a webinar on cold calling, voicemail, email, and objection that you should probably watch if you want to create those templates and learn how to use those templates in more detail. But to kind of summarize where we're at right now with what we've shared with you, again, the goal is to create an attention-grabbing message. And so, first of all, if you at least shift from product selling, which again is what 90% plus salespeople are doing, to consultative selling, you will improve your ability to grab attention, because you're going to be talking less about your stuff, because remember, we're humans, we care more about our own stuff. So you're going to be talking less about your stuff and more about their stuff. And when you create a consultative selling message, you're going to focus more on benefits, pain points, and asking good questions. The benefits and pain points are definitely going to be more attention-grabbing than product details. The questions make the exchange more about the prospect than about you, so that gets to that humans care more about their own stuff. Creating the building blocks will make it easier for you to break down your sales message and build it back up into a number of different scripts and emails and more. And so that's pretty much it. I hope that was helpful for you. I know it's a lot of information, but this video is being recorded and will be put on YouTube, which is also where you'll find all of the other training modules that I've referred to today, as well as really hundreds of others. And so if this has helped you at all, this is a free sales training webinar, and so what I would ask is, if you found at least one thing that has been valuable in this, you could return the favor and the help by liking, commenting, sharing, or subscribing to our channel and to this video. That is a great way to return any help that we've provided to you. If you like this stuff and you want more of what we have to offer, if you want more of our help, the way that we package what we do at SalesScripter is we provide what we call the SMART sales system. So SMART stands for Sales Messaging and Response Tactics, SMART. And with that, the system is all designed around, and what we're talking about here today is sales messaging, right? So the system is all designed around helping you to build your sales message and helping you with responding to questions and responding to prospects, responding to objections, and having real tactics, not just fluffy, motivational training, but real tactics you can use. So the system is, we call it a system because this is, as you can see, what we've shown you here today, we provide step-by-step processes that you can go through, plugging in your own stuff and creating real tangible stuff that you can use. And because of that, this is a system. It's not just some theoretical thing that's very fluffy or hard to get your hands around. It's very tangible, practical stuff. Anyways, the system is built on really like a three-legged stool. So leg one would be our sales methodology. So what you've seen here today is just a snapshot and exposure to part of an overall sales methodology, which is everything around, it's about creating your sales message, but creating your call scripts, making cold calls, voicemails, getting people on the phone, navigating organizations, dealing with objections, closing, asking good questions, networking, LinkedIn prospecting, all of that stuff. Our sales methodology is actually we provide it for free on YouTube. So if you go to YouTube, you can go to our playlists on our YouTube channel, and there is a Smart Sales System training program on our YouTube channel. That is our full sales methodology, which, by the way, is what most of our sales training companies would charge you hundreds of dollars or thousands of dollars for in a live format, and we give it away for free. The reason we give it away for free is because of leg two here, which is our software platform called SalesScripter. And SalesScripter will help you, like everything we showed you here today, you can kind of do on your own in like a Word document. But, again, if you're creating more than one sales message for the different audiences, and you're creating more than, and each sales message is going to have its own scripts and its own emails and voicemails, that can be a bit cumbersome to manage in Microsoft Word, especially if you're rolling that out across a team and you want to give all those sales tools to a team. So the SalesScripter software makes that real easy. It has a sales message builder area, which allows you to put all of your content, and then it uses all your sales message and your talk tracks and really your building blocks. It fills up a library of documents with all those building blocks. And so you get scripts and emails. And there's also a CRM functionality and email automation. Then leg three is we certainly provide professional services such as sales consulting and sales coaching. So sales consulting, we work with customers. We definitely, this process I showed you here today, we will go through that process with you and help you to brainstorm all of that and fill all that out and help you to create your scripts and sales message, and certainly provide sales coaching, working with salespeople one-on-one as well. That's pretty much it. Here is my contact info. If you have any questions,